Hello, everyone. Hello, welcome or welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Chris, and today's video is my very first author chat with none other than Helen Rygh-Pedersen. And let's see if I got that pronunciation correct when she comes on the screen. So I'm sure that Helen needs no introduction in the indie world. I personally have not shut up about Waking Ursa Minor since I read it, and that is the first book that I read. This one here in the epic fantasy realm, Waking Ursa Minor was one of my favorite books of 2022. Absolutely loved it. But we are here today to talk about a new release, the Zemkoska Chronicles with the Briar Crown. Look at this cover. Is this, well, let's try and look at this cover because of the ring light there, but is this not the most gorgeous thing you have ever seen? This is a romantacy or a romantic fantasy, and it was released on January the 18th. Again, I hope I got that date right. Let's bring Helen in and get her to introduce herself and her work. Welcome in, Helen.
Hello.
Hello. We're now live. All right. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and, of course, your new work, The Briar Crown?
Obviously my name's Helen, and I'm originally from the UK, but I've travelled around a lot. My dad was in the military, so he lived a bit in Canada, lots in Germany, and now I live in Norway with my husband, and it is a balmy minus 12 degrees outside right now. The Briar Crown. Where should I
I'll put it
start?
back up here. Here you go. Look at this.
The Briar Crown is the story of Rosalind Plavelli, who is a young woman in the country of Domovnia. Now, 25 years prior to the start of the story, Domovnia was invaded by the Oderbergs from the northern country of Bergam. And they killed the royal family and basically, took over everything and really suppressed the local people, particularly those who have magical powers known as the affinity. And that's sort of based around plants, and they can take power from the plants or give the plants power as well. And one day, Rosalind, who is not only one of these suppressed peoples, but she's also seen as like the lowest of the low amongst her own people due to where she is in the magical hierarchy. She stumbles across a wounded man in the forest, saves him, and basically that changes the course of her life.
Don't you hate when that happens? You're just walking, you're minding your own business one day, all of a sudden, wounded soldier. Like, what else are you going to do? So, that's a lovely introduction. Thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about when you realized that you wanted to be a writer and what made you take that first step. So we've gone from epic fantasy now with the release of Waking Ursa Minor in 2022, and then also a second release very close to that. So what made you take that leap?
Well, I've always loved writing. My mom always tells the story about when I was in kindergarten and I wanted to do what the big kids were doing. So the teacher was like, okay, here's a book and a pencil, you just write. I didn't know the alphabet, so I wrote my own little hieroglyphs. But I could tell the story back to the adults sort of time and time again. It's just something I've always loved doing, but as we grow up and we have to get a real job, as many of us authors sort of follow this pattern, I feel, that kind of got put aside. But then my husband was really supportive and persuaded me to get back into it. I kind of dug out one of the stories. Well, it had always been playing in my mind. I wrote it when I was 11, and it ended up being this, but you will be happy to know very little of that 11-year-old story is in this book. yeah, it was just a case of going for it, doing something that I've always wanted to do, but not been brave enough, maybe, or not believed in myself enough to do. So yeah,
How
my
was
key.
that feeling that when Waking Ursa Minor was released, people were starting to buy it, you were starting to market it yourself on your social media? What did that feel like?
Very surreal, slightly invasive because it's been in my head for so
Yeah, yeah,
long.
yeah, for sure.
But fantastic, yeah, really, and the response has been overwhelming. So thank you to everyone who has read it.
A big thank you to Leslie from the Nerdy Narrative, who, put it on
Yes.
my radar, put you on my radar. Like, amazing. But haven't turned back since. All right, so let's move into the Briar Crown, because you were in the epic fantasy realm for a little while. So how did the Briar Crown come to be, and that switch up that happened from the epic through to a romantasy or a romantic fantasy? So we've already heard a little bit about what it's about, but how did that concept come to you?
Well, first of all, I released Waking as a Minor, and I'd finished writing the first draft of the next book, and part of me was just like, I need a break from this world and these characters, because there are so many points of view in this series and there's going to be more. So I was just a bit like, I want to carry on writing, but I need something a bit lighter. Sounds wrong to say a bit more fun, but because obviously
I was
it's
going to
fun
ask,
to
what one
write
was more
Waking
fun?
As a Minor, but I just wanted something with like one POV, and just to sort of, yeah, just practice my writing a bit more and maybe build up my backlist. So I I like romantic stories, I guess, and it has to be in the fantasy. I am definitely a fantasy girl, so I couldn't go outside of fantasy. And it was interesting because we just moved into our new house, and I was unpacking my children's books, and I came across this book here, Forgotten Fairy Tales for Brave and Brilliant Girls. And there's a story in this called The Nettle Princess. And I have a bit of an obsession with nettles. And so that immediately got piqued my interest. And yeah, I thought, yeah, let's do a fairy tale retelling. Camp NaNoWriMo was coming up. So I was like, yeah, we'll do it then. I've got all the time because we were on holiday. So I was like,
All right, I think we cut out there for a second. Hopefully it comes
hello.
through. Hello. Am I back? Are you back?
Hello.
Hey, are we back?
I hope so.
I think we're back. It still looked like it was recording on YouTube, so that's all good.
Okay.
For that answer there, it's fine. We can fix it in post. That's future Chris's problem. You can see my face like getting redder from not having the aircon on in here. It's good.
I can't
All right.
tell.
It's because I'm so sheeny. All right. So let's one children's books. I believe you have a children's book out in
Yes.
the wilderness. Is that right? Do we
Yeah, I
have a copy
do.
of that to show? And
I
this was
do
your
have a
first
copy.
ever. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful. I haven't got a physical copy of this one yet, but I want to get one for my niece. So that's on the
Thank you.
cards to
Yeah,
come
so this
into
is
our
my
lives.
children's book, which I illustrated myself.
Did you?
And yeah, it's not the world's greatest. It won't win any awards, but you know, it was fun. It's told in rhyme. Yeah.
That's so lovely. And then to have that connection of, picking up this children's book when you're unpacking, and being
Mm.
obsessed with nettles. So that comes to my
Yeah.
next question about the nettles, and where did the obsession with nettles come from?
Well, I like crafts. I like knitting and sewing and that kind of thing. And I think it was 2 summers ago, I wanted to find out more about some plant-based fibers. And so instead of wool, and obviously found out about, bamboo and cotton and linen. And then I found out that people used to make a linen-like cloth from the fibers in nettles, and I found this is absolutely fantastic. I even went so far down the rabbit hole that I went out and picked some nettles and I retted them on the lawn and I processed them and got the fibers. I even had carders to get the tow. Um, Talto, don't know how you pronounce that, but yeah, so I didn't quite get to spinning it up, but I have managed to get fibers from a stinging nettle. So then when I saw this story, I was just like, yeah, I have to. I've been thinking, I really want to get this knowledge and this kind of ancient knowledge that we are forgetting these days. I wanted to get it into a story somehow, but I couldn't figure out how. And then when I came across the Nettle Princess, it was just like, yeah, that's it.
It's so lovely to hear of a retelling that's not one of the, I guess, the big fairy tales that everyone knows about. Just having picked up this book and being inspired is such like a beautiful, progression to have a story come from that into your brain. So I wanted
Mhm.
to actually talk a little bit more about the plant-based magic system in the Briar Crown. You've sort of introduced that quite beautifully. So I think you've already sort of touched upon it, but there was a lot of takeaway for me as a reader from the use of weeds and this thing that, is kind of looked down upon in the gardening world. We get rid of our weeds and utilizing them as a thing of power and beauty. So from the author's perspective, what message do you want to throw out there into the world from this really poetic sort of magic that you've created here?
I think basically it's just things are not always what they seem, and people as well are not always what they appear to be at first glance. Um, you know, and everybody has a purpose, everybody has something that they are good at, and it doesn't just because it might not be, I don't know, let's take this back to a high school level because everybody's been there. Maybe you're not the prom queen, maybe you're not the star football player, but it doesn't mean that you have nothing to contribute. And actually, I think these when I learn more about plants and weeds and how they are used, I appreciate them so much more. And I think that's true of people. If you diversify and you basically find what drives you, then it makes you such like a much more interesting person, and you don't have to fit in with what everybody expects or wants from you. And perhaps didn't explain that very well, but yeah, basically, people and things are not what they may appear to be at first, for good or bad. And we all have something.
There's always something we can dig deeper into. I like that. That's lovely. All right. So, the Briar Crown, it is quite a bit shorter than Waking Ursa Minor in your epic, but the world feels so rich. It's so open and full of possibilities, even with 200 to 300 pages less than the epic that you've got. So, are there plans for more books in the Zemkoska Chronicles coming our way?
There are, and I'm actually working on the next installment. I won't say it is the next book chronologically. And sort of this I envision sort of cycles or different series within this main series. So I am sort of calling this the Domanov dynasty cycle at the minute that I'm working on. But as you have seen, there is a big map with other countries, and we have met some characters from these other countries. So yeah, it's a wide world, and there's lots of possibilities there. So it will not be the last book in this world.
I noticed that in Waking Us a Miner too, the map. I don't know if this is going to come up on the screen there, but yeah, huge map in this book here. I think there might even be. Oh yeah, there's 2 pages. So yes, we've only been to
Yeah,
a little part of
I
this
sort of
world
zoomed
so
in on the
far
two main countries.
and pushed them in together. That's cool. Look, I'm excited. You're one of the only authors that's ever gotten me excited about romance in any capacity. So that's props to you. When I was
Yay.
reading it, I went to my wife Rachel like, damn it, I actually care about these characters because
I
I was
actually
such
have a
a
heart.
yeah. I was like, where did that come from, and why is it here? I'm not used to it. um, so now I've heard a rumor, and I don't know whether you can say anything about this rumor, whether it's a secret. But if you could just give us, the readers, a little hint. There's a theory among us of your fan base that the worlds between the two stories you are currently telling and you're currently working on are connected. Are you building your own brand of Cosmere? Are they connected? Are we allowed to know? Can
There
you neither
are
confirm nor deny?
some similarities, and they might not be immediately obvious. You might have to do some digging, but yeah, there are things which link them slightly. That's all I will say for now.
All right, fan base, if you heard that, start getting out the red markers. We're going to find it. We're going to jump in and start making notes. That's the goal for 2023. All right. Um, so I would like to move a little bit more into writing and the writing process, if we can, because I think that's fairly interesting as someone who's trying to write myself and not sort of like have any sort of structural routine, to learn a little bit more about the way that other authors write. So I believe you write via dictation. Is that correct? And if so, how does that work for you?
Well, I wrote the Briar Crown with dictation, give or take like the first chapter or and edits. Obviously, I do that on screen. I can't do that with dictation. Um, Waking as a Minor, because it took such a long time to write and I was still finding my own way with that, that was typed. And I don't know, I think going forwards, I will continue to type that series because I've done 2 books. And I think my voice changes slightly when when I use dictation. I think it's a lot more casual, maybe. Um,
Is it because you feel like you're talking to yourself when you write via dictation?
yeah, I mean, if anybody sees me dictate, sometimes I go out in when it's nice weather. I go out with my dictaphone and I just talk. And but sometimes I find myself acting out the characters. So if
I can
anybody
imagine.
sees me, they'll think I'm an absolute nutter. But um,
Just on your way
yeah.
to work, acting out full scenes.
um, so yeah, I started dictating again. A lot about writing the Briar Crown was a bit of an experiment for me. I wanted to write a shorter book. I wanted to write a standalone. That didn't happen. I wanted to write a book by dictation. So when Camp Nano came up, I was like, "Yep, gonna do this." I'd already been looking at it for some time and doing some practice. Um, so I just like now's the time to do it. And if you can get the hang of speaking the punctuation and doing it that way, you don't have to. There are other ways of doing dictation, but it does speed things up. If you can get the hang of it, your output increases like so much. I did some yesterday for the next book. I spoke for 33 minutes and I got over 2,000 words done,
Wow.
which would have taken me well over an hour and a half typing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have Dragon naturally speaking because I use the dictaphone. I have to have something that can transcribe the recording. Whereas you can do it with like Otter and other apps and things, and it just goes directly onto the screen or on your phone. But because I use the dictaphone, I use Dragon naturally speaking. And I have not trained my dragon, so I do find I have a lot of sort of editing to do after. But in terms of just getting that story out, especially if it's your first draft, it's a really good technique if you can get your head around it.
I was gonna
Just
ask
try
what.
it. That's all I'll say. It might
Yeah.
not be for you, but just try it.
What's the main difference for you? Because I think, like, I have heard other authors trying dictation as a way to write, and it works for some people. It doesn't. You're right. Just go ahead and try it. But for you, would you say it's a more effective method, or really depends on what you're writing?
I think it depends on what I'm writing. I think in the Reverta Rising series, there's a lot more detail, and I find when I'm dictating, I can't stop and put all those little details in. It's much more dialogue and action based when I dictate. But like the other day, I did about 20 minutes dictation. I wasn't really feeling it, and so I put it in the system. It transcribed it, and then I was editing it, and then I carried on writing because it had got me into it. So I wouldn't say I'm just a dictator. I do a bit of both, depending on my mood and the weather and all these other things
It's
which affect
always
writing habits.
nice to get inspired by your own writing, like when you hear it back to you and you're like, oh yeah, no, I know what I'm doing now, so I'm gonna continue on with that.
Although some of the dictation errors are hilarious. So
I wanted to ask, what do you have a memorable dictation error that's come across your screen when it's been trying to transcribe?
I think one was, I can't even remember what it was supposed to be saying, but I looked it up, and this group of people, whatever they were called, it just turned them into the fatties the whole time, and I was like, I did not say that.
Going for the politically correct takes there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So definitely that was a error.
And
Delete.
do you have to rack your brain to like try and figure out what you were saying in the first place?
Sometimes, not very often, but occasionally there will be a sentence, and I'm just like, what? What was I even trying to say there? But then you can always play the recording back, and they're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay, right.
Um, would you say that you're a plotter, or what's the other one? A panzer? I don't know what the other word is because I'm
Answer.
a plotter.
Um, I'm somewhere in the middle. I did not really plot Waking Ursa Minor because it was this sort of evolution over 22 years. So I didn't really plot that one, but then I had to sit down and plot what comes next. And I learned a lot about the writing process when I was writing that book. And now I do like to plot. I have a beginning, I have the end, and then I don't know if you use Save the Cat. They have this section in the middle called Fun and Games. That is not fun and games. It's very difficult. So I get the beginning, I write the beginning, and then I'm like, oh, now I actually have to make stuff up.
Now we have to get to where I wanted to be at the end.
Yeah, I know where I'm going. I can see it over
Yeah.
there. I just got to get over that river or whatever. But so I'm somewhere in the middle.
Do you
I just
find
can't free plot. I have to let it grow organically at that point.
do you find that your characters sometimes just do what they want and you've got to figure it out along the way?
Um, not too often. She says, thinking back. But then, yeah, Waking Ursa Minor ended up being twice the size I thought it was going to be. So maybe, yeah.
Yeah. I like when people write and they go, I did not expect that. Like, you're writing it. How do you not expect where that was going? But then I've now also done that where I've, read something back that I wrote months ago and I'm like, oh, that took a weird turn that I didn't
Mm,
think we were going in. So, it happens.
yeah. Or you realize, like, why are you doing that? That is a very silly
Yeah,
thing to do. Just come on, let's get back on track now.
that's almost more for me. Like, you're being really dumb right now. Why did I do this? Why did I write you this way? I wanted to ask, because of the connection with the children's books and the children's story that the Briar Crown was, based on. Do you remember a book from your own childhood or even your adulthood that made you think that, you know what, I can do this. This is the path for me and I want to write?
Oh, there's just so many. I mean, because we moved around a lot when we were younger, like you had these long car and plane journeys, so the only thing you could do was read, or because I'm that old, listen to story tapes, cassette tapes, and
Helen, I'm that old too. Like, we're in this together.
don't you just love the sound when it goes in the machine though, that click? Oh, anyway, yeah.
All right,
So
kids,
we always
ASMR.
had like stories on. I remember. I remember listening to like the Famous Five and The Secret Garden, all those sorts of children's classics. But I think, and I know a lot of people do not like the author, but I grew up as this series came out and seeing somebody make a career from writing the Boy Wizard series. I'll leave it there. That was the first time I thought, hang on, that she's actually doing that. It's not just a hobby. You can actually write for a living. And then, of course, as I said, you have to go get a real job. And then when I was teaching in the UK, this author, I cannot remember his name. He used to work in like video games and then started this time travel series for kids. And he came to the school, and I didn't watch the whole presentation, but I had to escort some of the kids there halfway through. And so I got to watch a little bit of it. And he was talking about how his day was writing stories. And I was just like, that's what I should be doing. Why am I teaching high school kids when that's what I want to be doing? um, so it's not really one particular book. It's kind of everything comes together really.
Do you have a book that you remember distinctly from your childhood? Just one that you enjoyed reading?
The Hobbit.
Yeah, okay. A lot of
I
people love The
have
Hobbit. I did not read The Hobbit till quite late in life.
I remember it was primary school and we could bring a book in for the teacher to read. Last half hour on a Friday we have story time or something, and that book was the book I remembered. I was just like, there's dragons and they're on this quest and there's troll, and it was the first time I'd ever like read anything quite that fantastical, and that was it. And then I was into like Brian Jacks with the Red Wool series, and that was all like off on adventures and quests and talking animals, and yeah, that was it. So from The Hobbit just like opened the door really.
I
Yeah.
feel like Tolkien was just a lot of people's fantastical awakening. There was something
I'm not
really
so
special.
much a fan of like the Lord of the Rings. I mean, I like it, but I'm not like a super fan. But The
Can
Hobbit,
we
just
say that
for
on this
me,
platform?
oh, don't know, don't hate me. No, I do like it. I have read it, but it's not something I reread. Whereas The Hobbit, I cannot wait to start that with my children. So,
It was a very special experience reading that for the first time. It's such an adventure. Like, there's
mm,
nothing quite like it that I've found
no.
since. So I agree. The Hobbit
There
is
is
a
a reason
wonderful.
he is the grandfather
Yeah,
of fantasy.
yeah. It's funny. Now that I've been on the platform for a little while. Don't worry, you're not the only person that hasn't enjoyed Lord of the Rings. Well,
I just found
to the
some bits
extent
of it
that
so.
yes, yeah, he did. I listened to it, and even I was like, "Mate, we've talked about this tree for about 45 minutes. Like, can we do something else?" But I enjoyed it. I would probably reread it again physically to see if I got anything more out of it. But that's in the
I want
future.
to reread it with audio with the Andy Serkis
Yeah,
narration. So
yeah, yeah. I forgot the Andy Serkis narration was there.
yeah.
Okay, so very important question. for all of our fellow writers out there, how do you find that you get your creative juices flowing? Do you follow a routine? Do you fly by the seat of your pants? What works for you to get you in that mindset?
That is a very good question, and one I'm still trying to find the answer to. Uh, no, I do have a job. I have two small children, so trying to establish any sort of writing routine can be very difficult. My husband's fantastic, and he takes them to try and give me time to write. But like, I know I could and I should do it like every evening, but when you've been at work all day, sometimes it just doesn't happen. But I do like to listen to music sometimes to get me going, or at least get the thought process going. And then if I'm thinking about it, I'm more likely to want to start writing. And if I'm really stuck, then I just have to, I don't know, find a new series to watch, and then I'm like, oh, I want to write about that. Or
Yeah, okay.
yeah, so I have no idea. It's just I'm sorry. I guess I'm a
That's okay.
pantser in that respect. No,
No.
it's definitely one of my sort of goals is to make this a more regular thing. But
You
yeah.
do hear about some people who just say write every day, and it'll just happen, write every day, to regardless of whether you know what you're writing or not. That does not work for me personally. I don't think it works for everyone. So it
No.
is a very individual process to find what works for you as a writer, as opposed to what works for someone else.
What's the expression they're using now? Is it phoenix writers instead of binge writers? Because binge writers sounds a bit bad, but yeah. So phoenix writers, where you write intensively for a couple of weeks, and then you don't write for a while until it's time to do your next project. So I think
Yeah,
I'm a
okay.
bit more like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I personally just like to forget that it exists, and then when I open it up again, I'm surprised by what is on the page, and just hope that I can connect some sort of dot when I'm in
nice.
there. But no, like
You
I
actually
haven't figured it
realize,
out
remember
either
where you are.
yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When I start editing it, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, here we are. Let's carry on. So, to round off the interview, and thank you so much for your time, but what is next for you? I know that I personally am anticipating the sequels in both of these series that you currently have out, but what's currently in the works for you, and what's happening in your world, in the written world?
Well, I would really like to get book 2 of Ravenna Rising out this year. And if I really get into gear, I would like to get the next book in the Zamkoska Chronicles out towards the end of the year, because I'm writing it now and it's very cold and snowy and wintry, and there's a lot of those sorts of vibes in this book, very Christmassy sort of vibes in parts of it. So I think, yeah, I'm going to really try and get that done. I'm also hoping to set up a subscription. So if anybody is interested in following me on my writing journey through that, then keep an ear out, I guess. And yeah, there's another little thing I have in mind concerning a character who is in the Briar Crown. I'd like to write something for her.
That's such a
Maybe
tease. It's fine.
maybe
We're
as a
here
reader magnet, but we'll see.
for. That's ambitious. Two books, two sequels coming out in 1 year. I'll take my hat off
So I'm
to
not
you.
promising anything just yet. We'll see how it goes.
It's set in stone. It's on YouTube, guys. So it's fine. We're gonna
You
take
heard
that
it
and
here
run with
first.
it. When you set up your subscription, send me the link and I'll put it in the description box as well. So we'll have it down below
Yeah.
once it's ready to go, regardless of whenever you're ready. And I will also put Helen's social media down below as well if you do want to go and check her out, as well as links to her book. So I'll pop multiple links for all the different countries down below if you do want to go ahead and check out Waking Ursa Minor or Briar Crown. So we will have those down there. I'm just going to wait until Helen's connection comes back and then we'll sign off. Hello. Is that you or me?
I don't know. I think it might have been me, even though I'm sat literally right next to the router.
Technology is the best. It's fine.
I was sat there going, "Hello, is there anyone alive out there?" Like that guy on Titanic.
Look, I'm hoping that we get it, but it's fine. We have enough to work with. I was just like signing off, and then your computer cut out. I was like, oh well, she's gone. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for the interview. Bye.
Yeah, I decided to leave. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I will pop all of Helen's social media down below, as well as links to both Waking Ursa Minor and the Briar Crown. Let's chuck the link in for the kids' book as well. Let's just put all the books down there that you can get from Helen. I pronounced it wrong again. Helen Rygh-Pedersen.
Rygh-Pedersen.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I have not pronounced Helen's name correctly once in this entire stream, and I apologize. But we'll pop all those links to the books down below. Thank you so much for your time and being the guinea pig. What a champ, being the guinea pig here on Author Chats. It's been lovely to talk to you and read your books, and I can't wait to see what happens in the future.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, I'll just close out and then we can just chat. All right, bye team. As always, if you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will. If you'd like to see Helen here again, then still click subscribe because that'll bring her back, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.